morning to everybody. Hope you are having a fabulous day. I am absolutely delighted to have with me today the beautiful Rachel Brown of Teens and Tweens Coaching. Rachel coaches, the thing I specifically wanted to speak about today, which is like really relevant at the moment, is exam stress. And Rachel is an expert at this and coaches are lovely teens through that really stressful time. So, I mean, I could go on about how fabulous Rachel is all day, but I will let Rachel just say hi and introduce herself, and then we'll get into some questions.
Hello, everybody. So I've been in education for 28 years as a teacher and head of department for drama. So I'm very, very interested in people. And over my time, I've realised actually what I really love is working with individual students and helping them and guiding them through their time at school, which can be really, really tricky for some. And obviously right now, there's exams, there's GCSEs, there's A-levels coming up, and that's something we actually can't avoid, and it's how to work out the way to best guide our wonderful young people through this really tricky time.
Gosh, couldn't have put it better. And I think sometimes not that we underestimate, but I think as years go by, the pressure becomes more and more. And it seems, I don't know about everyone else, but it seems to me that the exams get harder and harder. I mean, I have a 14-year-old and help him with work and stuff like that, and think, wow, it is madness. But in the age of social media and all of that as well, it's so accessible to sort of be able to find out how absolutely everybody in the world is doing, and the stage is so big with regards to the pressure to perform, isn't it?
Yeah, and also we don't really know how everybody else is performing, and that is one of the biggest dangers with social media. Is you might have people saying, oh my goodness, my revision's amazing, I'm really acing this. Or you might go, oh my goodness, I can't cope, life's awful. But everybody can put an image out on social media as well, which as a young person, sometimes you don't actually know how you're meant to be feeling about what is going on and about your exams. And I think there are so many, in terms of how you feel about them, there are so many external influences that are trying to tell you how to feel. You can get quite lost in the system. But I look at my youngest is currently doing his GCSEs, and I haven't got a clue about half the things he's talking about. It is very, very different. And I guess with so much access to information online, they have to make it more difficult, because I know when I was at school, which sounds like a long time ago, I got the encyclopedia off my mum and dad's shelf to look up information, whereas all they have to do now, they can type it into AI and they get a whole essay given to them, which actually makes it really, really hard because it's too accessible sometimes, but that puts more pressure on them.
That's really intriguing. So, as a teacher, how do you combat the use of AI then? I'm going side note already, ladies. Only been 2 minutes, but how would you combat that? Can you just tell that they've used it by the way it's written?
You can often tell by the way it's written, because once you get to know a student's style, you can suddenly see when they use words that even you have to look up. This isn't quite right, or the font changes, or it just doesn't sound like their authentic self of how they write. But also there are so many tools now, particularly when I'm marking coursework for drama, you put it through an AI checker and it actually shows you what has been directly copied from the internet too. And for the first time now, exam boards are actually, when you have to sign the coursework off to say it's their own work, you also now have to sign, and students have to sign to say it's not been AI generated as well. So whereas AI can be amazing, and I absolutely 100% think we can use it positively, it is also a massive hindrance as well, and a pressure to our young people that had just had it thrown in their laps really and are trying to navigate it.
Yeah, and it must be quite hard for people, especially if they're struggling. The temptation must be massive to just go, oh well, I'll just do that and change it a little bit. Like, it must be so tempting to do that.
Yeah, and then the danger is they don't actually understand the material. And I think this is where a lot of people are stressed with exams, is because they get stuck. And I think particularly with the internet, we've lost how to get unstuck, and that sort of resilience, that problem solving, has been taken out of a lot of people's hands, because you can just very quickly find something. I know what I'm like sometimes. I've bought books thinking, oh my goodness, I bought this book, I'm automatically going to know all about this subject. Then I never pick them up. You know, just having that in your lap doesn't actually mean you understand it. And, you know, talking on educational terms, it is that space retrieval that means students have that information going into their long-term memory. And so it is a matter of practicing, leaving it, practicing again, leaving it, practicing, and then knowledge grows and grows and grows. But with all the technology and AI, if you're just throwing it at yourself and then leaving it, you're actually not building up your understanding of what the exams are going to be asking you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you find is the biggest... Do you think then resilience is one of the biggest issues when it comes to the young people? From their perspective, what do you feel is the biggest challenge for them?
I think resilience is there. I think probably one of the biggest things, I think, is people don't have a vision of where they want to be. I think it's very easy to think, oh, I've got my exams, they're so stressful, I hate them, I don't want to do them. But actually, what people need is a vision of where they want to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, and then work backwards to see the exams as a vehicle to actually helping them get to what they really want to do, to fulfill their ambitions. Because if you haven't got a vision of what you want to do and you're invested in your exams, then why would you want to do them? Why would you have that buy-in to them? And I've had so many students that I've kind of coached in before for, you know, GCSE and A levels. And it's only when we sit down and we really get into the nitty-gritty of what is it you want to do? Well, I want to do this. Okay, let's work backwards. How do you get to that place? Well, these are your routes here. You could do this. You need to get these grades at GCSE. And suddenly they've got buy-in. And I think once they've got the buy-in and they realise, yeah, it's stressful, it's inevitably going to be stressful, you're being examined. But actually, when they see, if I can get my grades here, I then get to go and do what I want to do. Because post 16, you know, you get that choice. It is your choice. And then post 18, you know, you're an adult and it really is the area you want to do. And that clarity, I think, makes such a difference. But a lot of the time at school, it's all kind of, let's just work in the moment, work in the moment, work in the moment. And what I love about when I start to coach people is we think further. We think on a much more kind of holistic level and find what people want to do. So when they have their buy-in to their exams, it all starts to fit into place and they can see the point of them.
Do you find a lot of youngsters going, well, I don't know what I want to do, until you sit down and talk to them about it, and then they go, oh, actually, there is this and this and this I'm interested in? Because it feels like the immediate response to things is that they don't know. I don't know what I want to do. You know, I'm only 15, I'm only 16, I'm only 17, and I don't know what I want to be. But I think it's because they're potentially that they haven't been able to explore that yet and think about it in a more, like you said, a more holistic way of, well, actually, what do I enjoy? What am I good at? You know, so do you find that there kind of can be that approach until you talk about them on the level that about you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, what do you enjoy? What are your hobbies? What do you want to do? What interests you? Okay, in an ideal world, if you didn't have any barriers, where would you like to go? And actually just taking it and having that kind of that visualization, that dream about it, and having the space to do that. There is so much pressure sometimes to go, right, you've got work experience next year, what do you want to do? Well, actually, you might not have a clue. You might not know, but by talking about it, mind mapping it, thinking about it, going away, researching it, coming back and having that space to look at it, it gives you those ideas. And it doesn't have to be my forever ever job. It might be in a year's time, I'd like to go to college and I'd love to be doing performing arts. I'd love to be studying science and I'd like to do it vocationally. You know, there's so many different steps to it. And when you do coaching, the beauty of it is you can explore at the young person's kind of timeline what it is they really, really want to do.
Do you find that the stress that they feel, the anxiety and the stress towards the exams, kind of get in the way of them being able to think that way?
Yeah, it can do. It can do. The thing is with mindfulness and stress, it's got to be learned. It's like anything. It doesn't happen naturally. It's something I'm still working on all the time. It's, you know, I coach this and yet still I have to practice it as well. But I think what's amazing now, and I never had this when I was doing my exams, is we've got so many techniques we can teach our young people to actually help them to get through this and recognize it. I think particularly with teenagers, and I've got my youngest at home doing his GCSEs now, is teenagers are hormonal, they are moody, they don't always want to communicate with you the way you want them to. You know, I sometimes imagine it'd be like, hi darling, would you like a cup of tea? You know, can I do anything for you? And I get, I'm busy, I'm working, snapped in my face, you know. But it's listening to them. Actually, I've learned that with my son, he doesn't want to have me interrupting, offering to make him a cup of tea. He wants to be left alone. And I've got to find my right moment to talk to him. And I think we've got to work out as parents of people going through exams, what do they need from us? Because probably 90% of them can't tell us. They don't probably know themselves. They just are existing within this kind of sort of big black space that they see at the moment. And we've got to, which is really hard as a parent, because I know I'm a solver and a fixer, and I want to be able to just wade in there and go like, right, this is what I see the perfect mum as being. But actually, I'm learning when he needs me to back off, when he needs me to make him a cup of tea, when he needs to be forced to go out and get some fresh air. But it has to be done on a much more subtle level rather than my version of what I think his revision period should be like.
Absolutely. And don't you find, like, I work with quite a few young people now on a one-to-one basis, and what I tend to find is, like, you'll maybe speak to a parent, or like if you, or do a session with a parent and a child, and the parent afterwards will say, well, why have they never said that to me? Why do I not know that? And it's, do you find that sometimes it's both as a parent and as a coach, sometimes it's the parent is not always the best placed individual to have the conversations because of, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I think I mean that the parent tends to be the child's safe space. So the child will seek comfort and safety from a parent, and not so having the difficult conversations about things that stress them out interferes with that sense of safety and comfort. So they would rather than not sometimes speak to a parent about the difficult things, because that invades their nice time, if you like. So sometimes it's actually an external adult that is better placed to be able to have the more difficult conversations with the children. I have certainly found that through my coaching, that the teens and tweens that I deal with tend to tell me things that they wouldn't necessarily tell their parents. So, you know, discuss things that they wouldn't have that type of conversation with their parents. And it's not that it's bad, it's just different.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's a barrier with the parents. It's a bit like, I'm not sure I want to share this with my mum or my dad. I don't know how they'll react. And when they're talking to somebody neutral, they know that you've got absolutely no agenda. You want the best for them. And parents want the absolute best for their children, and they want to be able to make sure they are happy and safe. But as a child, yeah, they are their safe space, and they sometimes need somebody else to say to them, yeah, okay, I'm gonna be harsh here. I'm going to ask you a really difficult question. Why do you want to do this? Or what did you do that for? And actually, because it comes from a place of absolutely no agenda, they have a chance to think and answer honestly. And they know there is no comeback, there's going to be no argument, there's going to be no fallout, and you actually get the opportunity to explore it. And I never really wanted to talk too in depth to my parents, probably because, like you said, that was just a safety space and I didn't want to mix the two. But also, I don't think I always knew how to express myself to them, because I think automatically we go back into child mode a lot of the time when we talk to our parents. Whereas when we're talking to a coach or another adult, we actually often speak on the same level as we're spoken to. And that makes a real difference to how we start to problem solve and work through what we're doing. And that's really important. I still see that now. If I'm talking to my mum and dad and I'm stressed, I can sometimes think I'm turning into a child mode here and have to kind of think, no, I'm a proper grown-up adult now. And, you know, and I think it is that relationship very much.
Absolutely.
You need
And
that kind of...
The schools are under such pressure as well. And I think quite often there's not enough, and I'm not down on schools here, but there quite often isn't enough pastoral kind of care available to be able to help all the kids that need help. You know, the schools can be quite overwhelmed with regards to like being able to address the needs of all the children. So it quite often kids then choose not to speak to their parents and don't necessarily have an adult at school. So all they then have access to is their peers, which can cause a confusing picture. Like we were going back talking about the social media, people post the good stuff, don't they? Or the really bad stuff. They don't post the in-between stuff. So it can feel quite limited for an individual. And this is not just kids, this is grown-ups as well. It can feel quite, isolating, can't it? Because you don't necessarily always have that individual to be able to speak to. So then that's obviously where we come in, and take over that part of it. And the differences that you can see that it makes is incredible, which is, let's face it, why we do it in the first place. I know, obviously, with especially at the moment with the exam preparation, some of the coaching that you've been doing with the youngsters, that you can see the progress they make even after one session. And it's not necessarily actual physical progress in the questions that they can answer, it's the progress in their mindset, that they can approach the exam process differently. That must be just so rewarding.
It is amazing. And like, I do my best at school to help them, to guide them in the time we have. But one of the techniques I used with one of my wonderful young people last week was a technique called anchoring, where he felt very, very anxious, really anxious. So we thought of a time in his life where he was very, very relaxed. And we did visualization around it. He really delved into all the senses so he could really picture it very strongly and recall it in his head. And then we found a point on his shoulder that would become his anchoring point. And every time he was feeling stressed, I was teaching him to do is you actually go to that, and that then recalls your memory. So we're playing around with the kind of neuro pathways. So it's actually an immediate technique you can now use to calm yourself down when that kind of panic sets in, or you get so overwhelmed you can't see what you're doing, because it's so easy to feel like everything is too hard, I'm going to do nothing. But this is a really lovely technique where he can just take a breath, think about that moment, brings him back down to earth. But we wouldn't have time to do that in school with every single student in year 11, in year 12, in year 13, because there just isn't the time. And, CAMHS is a wonderful service, absolutely wonderful, but it's so underfunded and it's got such long waiting lists that it's just not able to serve all the people it does. I mean, what it does brilliantly, but the demand is too high because mental health is such is such an issue at the moment for so many people.
What we've done as a society is encourage people to talk about the negative aspects of their mental health. So we've encouraged people to come out and say, I'm not coping very well, I am struggling. What sadly I feel what we haven't necessarily done in society is built the infrastructure to be able to cope with this then influx of people wanting to then say that they need some help. So the encouragement to ask for help is there, but then once people have asked for the help, the infrastructure hasn't been set up effectively enough to be able to cope with that influx. So what we then end up with is amazing organisations like CAMHS who are just completely overwhelmed by the volume of referrals that come in.
Yeah.
And so we've got all these people wanting the help now, but we haven't got enough services to be able to cope with that. And I see that in my job all the time. You know, I get people coming to me privately because they are sat on a waiting list, and I know it's sad and it's a bit of a trigger, but you know, just knowing you're on a waiting list to be seen by CAMHS is not going to stop you from self-harming, is it? You know,
No.
it doesn't actually deal with anything. And this part, I mean, we've got plans to work together, haven't we, to help as many people as we can. And with me, just to give a bit of background for people out there who might not have crossed my path, we're launching a group at the beginning of July, that's free on entry. That's going to be a forum for specifically for families that face extra challenges due to neurodiversity and stress and anxiety and things like that, so that there's a place for these people to come in. One of the things that Rachel and I discussed is that, you know, people are asking for help, people are approaching and doing those things and facing blockers all the time. So they might have a referral onto the ASD pathway, for instance, but the waiting list is so long, not being able to get in front of an educational psychologist, etc. So for anyone who's interested in finding more about that, just send me a message and I'll get you on the wait list for that. But Rachel and I, in our discussions about this, what it is going to be is it is going to be very much a coming together of professionals that want to help. So the likes of speech and language therapists, play therapists, OTs, Rachel as a coach who can help with all kinds of things. So one of the things Rachel and I are discussing for over the summer while our children are off school is potentially running classes in drama-based classes in confidence of transitioning into different areas of school life, whether that's from primary to secondary, whether that's entering your GCSE years, you know, being able to interpret the way people communicate, because that's not necessarily always easy, reading what people are actually trying to tell you, you know. So this is something that Rachel and I feel like very passionate about, don't we, lovely, and that we're going to be doing a lot more work on as the year goes by.
Yeah, I think it's so necessary, because also, if you think about it, by the time somebody asks for help, they've probably spent a long time thinking about asking for help. You know, it might be, you know, you might be thinking, I need to ask for help, and 6 months later you ask for it. You don't need another waiting list, because it's immediate. When you feel like you do, you feel like you do in that moment, and that's what needs to be addressed. And like you said, you know, Helen, it's not going to stop people harming themselves or having negative thoughts being on a waiting list. If anything, it's just so frustrating. And I've been there with my children as well, you know, particularly my middle daughter, where she desperately needed help. And it felt like there was nowhere to go. There was absolutely nowhere to go. And I think we have to come together and think, how else can we help our young people? And obviously my love of drama, you know, I mean, having taught drama for 28 years means I'm so people-centered as well. And it's about being so interested in the person And I think also once you understand yourself, whoever you are, that gives you much more confidence to take your journey forward and help solve the issues that you're undergoing too.
Absolutely. I was chatting with a teen the other day who is going to be part of the bigger view of um, the ND Hub, and she was saying if only it was okay for her because she has background in drama, but if only somebody had like spoken to them earlier about how to read body language, how to, what, I know it sounds so basic, but for some of these children, being able to read what a facial expression actually means is not that easy. Social communication is an absolute minefield. As grown-ups, it can be difficult at times, can't it? You can easily take someone the wrong way when they don't actually mean it. And as kids, and especially kids potentially with additional needs that don't have that social communication element down as some others might, these are the things that don't get covered in school. These are the things that you're not going to get like access to just whenever you need it. And that's part of what we're talking about, isn't it? Collaborating, having all of these different individual passionate people, because with all the best will in the world, as individuals we do not have all of the skills that is required to get these youngsters or adult individuals through all the challenges that they need. But actually, as a collaborative, as a group of professionals with specialist areas, and we all come together, like that's the best possible chance for people to then be able to have one place to go to be able to access everything.
And to be able to realize there are people that really do care, people there that are on their team, they're fighting their corner, and listening to them, like you were saying, because we had that conversation about, reading body language. That is fantastic. Having that voice to tell you, this is what I need. And it's not about somebody else's agenda. This is what I'm going to tell you. But it's listening to what people really, really want from us as well, which is so important because they are the people that count, and understanding what they need is just absolutely vital. And the fact that we all want to listen to that and we want to really help them moving forward, I think it's going to be such a special collaboration.
Yeah. It's often those people that take a long time to ask for help. It's often those people that are the people whose voices that get lost in the crowd, isn't it? They're not the ones that are loud about it or, really forthcoming. I think for us, we don't want any children to slip under the radar, do we?
No, absolutely not, because everyone deserves to have the best possible future they can and to be happy.
Oh, gives me all the feels, this, I feel quite emotional. So with regards to people, I'm just going to pop up your Instagram handle for anyone who is in my following group who wants to find more out about Rach and Teens and Tweens coaching. There is her Instagram handle, which is at Teens and Tweens Coaching, and her Facebook is Teens and Tweens Coaching. Teens and with AND, not with the symbol. So get on and give Rach a follow, and you will see more of the two of us together at some point early in the summer. Because one of the big things we want to do is make sure things are in place for support for people before the dreaded summer holidays, when it all becomes a little bit even more difficult. So that's the plan there. Rach, is there any other message that you wanted to send out there to anyone before we finish? We are half an hour, and I've been so good at trying to keep to the half an hour because we could literally talk all day.
Oh, there's so much you could say about making sure you plan your time, making sure that when you plan your time, you don't do it so that you spend all your time making a really neat timetable that then just goes to pot. You know, that's one thing I really work on with people, is thinking about how they use their time wisely. I could also talk about making sure you sleep properly, that you eat properly, you know, very practical things. And then you find some mindset techniques that will work for you. I love walking visualizations because I'm not very good at sitting still and trying to think about being mindful. But if you're walking and you're looking and you're appreciating nature and you're working through your senses and you're getting out in fresh air, that is probably one of the best things young people can do when they've got exams. Plan it in. You're going to go for a half an hour walk, you know. And I would say also with exams, I'm going to start talking now and just talk for ages, but it is about making sure you work hard, but you take your breaks as well, because nobody can work hours upon hours and be productive. You've got to make sure you do your 45 minutes to an hour, then you take your 15-minute break, and then you carry on, because just by you're resetting your mind, you're giving yourself more energy. And it's about not just trying to go on it full force and panic. It's about taking it one step at a time, planning your time, eating properly, sleeping properly, and then reaching out to us if you need different mindset techniques to actually help as well.
I think a lot of grown-ups out there could do with that piece of advice as well. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been, as always, a complete pleasure to speak to you.
It's been amazing. Thank you, Helen.
Yeah, anyone out there who needs any help, advice, contact either of us, and we'll get you sorted. And we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.